morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Whether you're joining us live or watching the recording, we are so glad you're here. Welcome to Future World Conversations. For those who are joining us for the first time, Future World Conversation is an initiative by Future World Alliance, a global nonprofit focused on helping educators, students, and innovators become future ready through the practical and responsible use of AI. I'm Padmarchana Kandi. I lead strategy and programs at Future World Alliance, and I'll be your host for the today's session. Today's theme is simple but powerful. Great innovation isn't about building faster, it's about learning better. And in an AI shaped world, that learning loop matters more than ever. I'm excited to introduce Anil Pantangi, a award-winning global product and technology leader with 15 plus years of experience turning complex AI and ML into real measurable outcomes. He's also a top AI 75 honorees and a member of Forbes Technology Council. Today, Anil is going to walk us through HeadScale, a practical framework for turning experiments into impacts. With that, Anil, over to you. Thank you so much for leading the session today.
Thanks, Padma. Thanks, everyone, for hopping on a Friday morning. First of all, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. And like I mentioned earlier, I'm based in Dallas, Texas, and today the topic is on strategic experimentation, metrics that matter. I know many product folks are here. So end of the day, what value matters to your customer is value that your product generates to them, whether it is a delight or ability to order something and grab it in 30 minutes or read a book or order something for your kid. So that value definitely matters. But my session today is more grounded on how do you measure that value and what are some metrics that you need to look after while you're measuring that value. And also with the advent of AI, your ability to ship products has become commoditized. What I mean is in the past, if you have an idea, it takes 6 to 12 weeks for even to get a POC out, but now you could ship it in a few hours or few days. But end of the day, still boils down to what is the value that a shippable product is generating. So we'll see how to turn those experiments into business impact. And again, thanks to Future World Alliance and the opportunity to speak at Future World Conversations here. And this is being recorded in Jan 2026. The space is moving so fast. Whatever I say today could be absolute next hour or something of that sort. So, but at the same point of time, I'm not going to get into much of tools. I'm going to get in more into mental models today. With that said, a little bit about me. Anil Pantangi, Global Product and AI Leader, currently in consulting, helping telecom and energy utilities. And I also serve as a chief editor at Wiley's Applied AI Letters. I'll pop some QR codes later during my slides. You can find more about those. And yeah, similar to Future World Alliance, I do care for responsible AI and as well as how do we give back to the community through education. So I serve as a fellow at one of the fellowship community. So. All right. I briefly covered during my introduction. I mean, the reason for this talk today is, I mean, like if you're a product owner or a product manager or even builder, you need to know why you're doing something, right? So I started writing, wanted to put a flashy slide here on why am I doing it. Then I realized it doesn't have to be that flashy. The thing is, why this talk? I mean, the more number of product owners and teams that I talk to, these are some of the patterns that are evolving. I mean, many teams ship fast but learn slow, as in they're shipping product faster, but learning as in getting customer insight or getting customer feedback has been slow. I mean, as in you're able to ship a website within an hour, but what is your scalable mechanism to gather feedback? That's what's missing. And also chasing activity or impact, as in, yeah, you could have your portfolio or you could have your products ship like 10 features or 15 features every week, but what impact does it create for your customer or for your business if you're in B2B, or even for your employees if you're in enterprise landscape setting? And I'm also seeing, yes, so as yesterday I was in one of the CIO meetings and gargantuan slides of vanity metrics everywhere, like adoption of A feature, adoption of Y feature. But what is missing is how those metrics tie to clear link to the customer or business value, which is what we'll go through. And again, I mean, great product measure what matters, and metrics tell the story between hypothesis and outcome. So end of the day, the whole idea of any metric is, does it tell me the story on how does it tie back to hypothesis and what is the outcome? And I advocate for seeing this type of metrics tied to hypothesis and outcome as part of the DNA of the product development. My hope is that after this talk or after the framework that I introduced today in this talk, you would be able to move to more hypothesize and validate mental model as opposed to ship, hope, and pray. So this is a shift that I'm aiming for from the talk today. Today, if you're shipping a product and hope someone likes it or hope my users purchases it or something of the sort, instead of that, create a hypothesis and validate with your users. With that, I'll introduce a framework that I have. I mean, I'm pretty sure you have seen similar framework at other places as well. I mean, I've used it in last at least 7 to 8 years, one or the other flavor of it. And I kept on repeating that framework with multiple words and flavors. And then I realized I had to put it in a way where it is easy to transfer the knowledge or hand it over to someone else so that they can run the show within their teams or within their community. And that's when I created this term or framework called the H scale framework. We'll spend a couple of minutes on the slide and the next one. I mean, I'll share the slides with Padma and the team. If you want, feel free to take the pictures as well. Um, you could call it head scale or high scale. The motivation of this particular framework is primarily to give a structured flow when you're taking up a new product or new AI feature within your landscape. And again, this is more for enterprise, B2B, B2C, consumer grade products. If you are shipping a rocket to moon, probably this may not be your framework. Maybe it is, but I haven't tested that. But I have tested this in B2B, B2C enterprise landscape, and it worked out fairly well, right? Um, I know we were chatting earlier with Padma. I know with commoditized and democratized software development tools like Lovable, Replit, you get to ship the product sooner. But what continuously misses out on is when you ask for hypothesis, that's where people stare at blank walls. What is a hypothesis? I know, yeah, you created this portfolio, you have your website, or you've created a website for ordering something online. But what is a hypothesis? Is your hypothesis to take market share away, or is it hypothesis to get your deserved customer lifetime value increased? So that's something as a product owner or AI evangelist you should be looking at first. What do you believe will happen and why? And write it down it in plain English. It doesn't have to be sophisticated. It does not have to have strategy words, just plain English. As in, let's say if you're introducing a e-tail website for pet food or something of the sort, you could say that by creating this website, pet lovers would be delighted the way how the food appears at their door, pet food appears at the door. That could be simple, right? So hypothesis, don't worry about what business goals are and all of those things. Just write down in a plain English. And then signals. What indicators prove it is working? I mean, what indicators would tell you that your product or your feature that you're putting out there would move your needle towards hypothesis? And those are some of the metrics that we'll go through in the next slide. And again, those indicators can be in plain English as well. Indicators could be number of users aware of my product, or number of users aware of my product coming into my website, or number of users going to all the way to the cart, right? I mean, again, some of these are already democratized, but what I emphasize is write them down in plain English, and you can figure out the metrics down the lane. And then what does success look like, both quantitatively and qualitatively? Of course, qualitatively, you get customer chatter online, offline, and everywhere. But quantitatively, what does success look like? Is your success, maybe if you're in a growth stage, your success is awareness, right? First 6 to 12 months, don't worry about revenue, or first 90 days, it's all about awareness. So write that down. But also, you also need to write down that you need to pay back to your investors. So what does success look like after that? What is your expected ARR to be successful? So once you identify your hypothesis and the signals that would indicate that you're moving towards hypothesis and criteria, then carve out small actions that you need to take. I know a lot of times you get excited, you start building a website on Lovable right here, but I would say write these three things down, and then do your actions. Going to Lovable or Replit or hiring a team or hiring a software engineer. Those are your actions here. Could be a small experiment that you want to run to validate the hypothesis. After you perform those actions, then you need to have mechanisms to learn as in how do you capture qualitative and quantitative insights. And again, capturing qualitative and quantitative insights has to be a robust feedback loop, as in it should be continuous. It should not be a one-off. It could be either in product. If it is offline product, how do you tie them back to the actions within in product? So capture those qualitative and quantitative insights. And finally, evaluate, as in once you evaluate your learnings from all of the signals and criteria that you have written down, those evaluation should further give you actions, as in, do you want to pivot to something else, or do you want to persevere in the same path, or do you want to scale? I mean, if your hypothesis and if your experiment tells you that, hey, this is a good hypothesis and you're moving along really well, then you could actually scale your product or your growth engine, whatever you have. So yeah, that's the H scale framework, high scale framework: hypothesis, signals, criteria, actions, learn, and evaluate. We'll take a small example here with an applied example. take an example of AI incident bot as an, and I'm pretty sure most of you might have heard about tickets or ServiceNow products or those kind of things, and they have bunch of features on AI summaries. So um, if it weren't for a framework or methodology like this, I mean, if a customer asks you, hey, let's go ahead and create summary of the tickets. I mean, an AI product owner or an AI evangelist is pretty excited, right? I mean, you could get an LLM and throw in all the tickets in there and create a summary. But what is the hypothesis, right? As in, write down that hypothesis, as in, by using this AI-driven summary, I could reduce incident triage time by 30%, right? And your signals and criteria will tell you whether that is working or not. Because one counter hypothesis is by just looking at summary, maybe people are misclassifying the root cause, right? Because they haven't read the small nuance that is written in one comment that this only happened on weekdays or this happened in Tuesday afternoon, because summaries might tend to miss it because summary is generated based on the construct that you give to LLM on what prompt it is. So for the incident bot auto summarization, signals could be like dwell time on the ticket, scroll depth on the AI blocks, as in are the customers or users reading all of your AI block, and after reading the AI block, are they actually going into the ticket again or not? I mean, if they go after reading the summary, if they still go to the ticket, is it a good signal or is it a bad signal, right? I mean, one could argue if they're not looking at the ticket, yeah, then AI summary is giving clear details, but counter argument could be they might be missing out on the details that are already captured by user and might be missed out by LLM summary. And then criteria, while criteria could be both business value as well as your AI feature criteria. One example here is trust threshold as in correction count. I mean, how many times is user actually correcting or thumbs up or thumbs down on that? And I know I put here example as 15%, but 15% is generally not even a good percentage to put the feature out there. As in, if 15 out of 100 users are saying that summary is missing out on the details, in pilot it is okay, but in production that's not a safe bet to at least in the incident management area. And once you have this criteria met, then you'll start here in this example, the action is deploying a V1 summarizer engineering team alpha, as in you test with a couple of engineering teams and do a 2-week pilot. That's your action. And from those 2-week pilot, you'll have learnings. And one learning could be, as an example from this, velocity for 2 teams went up by 40%, but users hated the format, right? I mean, at a big tech company where I was in, users loved one of the internal feature doc summarizer that I introduced personally. Users loved it, but the UX was gronky. I mean, they had to fit in a flyout model within an existing website and multiple scrolls within flyout model because there are various fields that users wanted. So they hated the format, right? And we were able to capture within first 2 to 3 weeks. In this particular example, during the evaluation, some of the ideas could be updating the prompt logic and perceive it to team beta, as in move to another team or extend your cohort. Because since in this example, users hated the formatting, again, I wouldn't scale yet. I would only expand to new cohort and see feedback coming in, whether that feedback resonates well with the new community or not. A lot of times what happens is you get positive feedback, 40% improvement, then you tend to scale up, but that's when you'll start seeing more learnings coming in. So I would encourage to have more alpha, beta, or even more after that, and then go with pilot, at least if it is the high sensitive HR information or incident management, those kind of areas. And again, I know it sounds simple, hit scale framework. Yeah, you could write it down and start working on it. But one thing is depth of the insight, right? I mean, what does this depth convey across the 4 verticals, if you will? Usage, performance, utility of the product, and ROI. I mean, don't just stop at are they using it, right? As in moving from level 1 to level 4, that's where your daily active users DAO to business ROI takes time, and that's where users' life actually gets better. Because if user says that usage is simple, but there is no ROI, then you might only sustain there like 3 to 6 months because users are happy about your product, but you'll see retention rates dropping, and then that's when your ROI doesn't get realized for your customer. And also within that high scale framework, there could be some metrics that take longer than you anticipate to have for your evaluation, and which are called lagging metrics or lagging North Star. And we'll dive into those things, what could be leading metrics and lagging metrics. Even sometimes leading metrics and lagging metrics looks highly correlated at the face value, but what I encourage if you're operating in enterprise or large scale products is to validate with your applied science or data science teams whether they're correlated or not, right? As in time spent reviewing in our first example, bug resolution summary, right? Time spent reviewing reports. So if customers are spending more time on reviewing the summary, then is engineering velocity getting improved? I mean, it sounds reasonable, as in they're looking at the summary, so which means our summary is useful, which means their engineering velocity should improve. But you need to validate that using applied science mechanisms, whether there is a correlation, whether there are other offline product activities that are happening within the company that are drawing the engineering velocity, or whether they have more tailwinds that are creating engineering velocity outside of your bug summarizer. So do those correlation analysis as well. And yeah, I mean, these days you have a bunch of AI tools available that you do the correlation analysis of leading proxies with lagging not stars. And again, another example is correction count. As in, let's say you are in a consumer market and you provide AI summaries. How many customers or B2B customers, how many of them are renewing your product, right? And also high user confidence, accept versus retry rate. I mean, does it really convey to lifetime value? I mean, if they're engaging with high accepted content, is lifetime value more? I mean, there are sometimes users feel high valued when they're critiquing a content and they come back to it, right? I mean, I know we all have gone through those experiences where you hate some content coming in on Reddit or some other post, but you still go there because as a user, you feel valued providing your perspective and someone is wrong. And again, although it is wrong, you're still going there. So find out those correlation analysis. And again, it really boils down to whether something is creating customer value or not. And again, like I mentioned, if you can't measure North Star within a 2 week sprint, you need a proxy, right? Because otherwise you'd be waiting until 6 months to 1 year only to realize that your product is not creating any value. I know so far we've looked at one side of the framework called high scale. Another mental model I encourage product owners or AI evangelists is look at this spectrum as in if you're launching a new feature or new product out there, what does flow state look like? And flow state as in when everything works well, as in all the way from login to exit, all the way from login to cart checkout. What does flow state look like? And is your experience well enough to capture those engagement metrics, flow state? And then what does friction state look like? I mean, for the lack of intentional assessment of friction state, a lot of times you come across friction state experiences or data points from your pilot users, which is fine. But to be honest, before you even deploy pilot, you should also know about what does friction state look like. I mean, if someone is retrying a particular website, is that a friction state? And how many times do I need to log in as an admin and click someone on something on the background to move from page 1 to page 2? That is override, manual corrections. And is cognitive load too high on the friction state? And then also your product, does it have feedback mechanism as in either direct satisfaction scores or qualitative sentiment loops that are coming in? So I call this framework as a 3F mental model. So any product, write down on a one page, what does flow state look like? What does friction state look like? And feedback. And for each one of them, what are some metrics that you want to capture? And again, you can tie them back to your high scale mental model as well. But this would be a quick starter pack. If someone were to ask, can you give me metrics that you want to measure for a product? You could use this method. I know in the friction state, one example I want to double click on is manual corrections. Here is my threshold if you're launching a pilot. Like I would say still it's a high bar, as in 1:10 count, as in of every 10 users that use your product, probably one override is a decent start to put it there. If you are launching a pilot with 3 or 4 overrides or 3 or 4 retries to execute certain tasks, then you have shipped a failed product to pilot users. Because end of the day, pilot users are going to be advocate of your product out there in the market or within the company or within your cohort, right? So like if a recruiter has to manually fix 3 out of every 10 AI resumes, then they'll eventually churn. I mean, they won't use this product. They'll go for offline product. I mean, I read some of the comments about LinkedIn Recruiter by recruiters. They hate some of the features of LinkedIn Recruiter, and they're actually buying other products like that are out there in the market, like Ashby and other products. And again, end of the day, user ends up with more than one product, right? And which creates churn for both of them. What I haven't touched upon in my HScale framework is more on the DevOps slash product ops side, which a lot of product owners or AI owners do not take a look at it today. But I encourage you as the AI owner for your product, look at that DevOps aspect as well. Doesn't sound sexy, but here are some of the things because you cannot scale your product across various geos if you cannot actually codify your governance policies, right? I mean, one lesson learned I had at one company was although my product had 18 different languages that you can choose and one of the language was French, I went ahead and deployed that product in Canada as well. But later I learned from my Canadian counterpart is, hey, you need to deploy it in Canadian French. I'm like, wait, what? Is there a Canadian French? Right? So those are the governance policies and those need to be codified in your enterprise product landscape. And also you need to have as part of your testing and DevOps processes, whether Canadian language is also translated or not. If it is translated, have we tested that? And if it is tested, what type of drift is there? And what does audit trails look like? Drift as in, again, drift is generally spoken in terms of data management, but could be applied within the product as well. Is there a drift within the user base that is coming into the product? Is there a drift in the usage? And how do you detect them, right? Currently, the mechanisms that I see, these are more reactive, as in people create reports and you need to go in there, but you could automate a bunch of this stuff with the tools available that are available out there. And also have a dashboard for human override controls, as in how many tickets are coming in to check out on behalf of the user, how many requests are coming in saying that I was planning to pay, but your product doesn't accept Amex card. So I close the card then. So what are the override controls that you have to do? So again, DevOps is another topic in itself. I have a QR code. I wrote another article primarily on telemetry in DevOps. Please take a look at that. I mean, feel free to reach out to me afterwards. We can chat more. And generally, I do this session in person at the product tag groups, and I give out papers to them to start working on as an exercise. I mean, like we already touched upon. One example is bug summarization. Does it help EMs? Does it help in spending time reviewing? Likewise, there are tons of other examples. These are a couple of other examples like AI resume screener. I mean, I would say take it as a homework, write it on a plain paper, put H scale, all the alphabets, and then resume screener. What does hypothesis look like? What signals? And yeah, so with that, I will cap my topic there. And there is a quick recap. Write it down in a white paper. And I would encourage, it's a Friday afternoon, take like 15-20 minutes on each topic and write those down. And if you are a product owner or in a position required to write PRDs or BRDs, I would highly encourage to look at this framework or embed this framework into your writing culture. That would help you to look at all the corners. With that said, again, thanks for the opportunity, Padma and the team at Future World Alliance. And again, myself, Anil Pantangi. And I think at the beginning I mentioned I'm a chief editor at Wiley Applied AI Letters. It's an amazing journal. And again, I don't get paid there. But if you're interested to know more about advanced AI and again, this journal is one of those journals is cut through the noise, as in you can see many noisy articles out there which you can generate, but Wiley goes through rigorous review process. So yeah, I mean, you could submit your ideas and papers over there. Thanks, Padma. I'm open to take a few questions. I think we do have time. Likewise, happy to brainstorm any ideas.
Yeah, anyone feel free to unmute yourself and then ask questions or share your reflections on this.
Okay, so
yeah, go ahead.
Hi, Anil. So I have a question. Hi. So you talked about the 3 Fs, that's the feedback, flow, and friction. So how often do you recommend revisiting those metrics once as and when the product matures?
There was a small glitch in your audio, Gurpreet. Do you mind repeating it for me?
Okay, so you talked about the 3 Fs, the flow, friction, and feedback.
Yeah.
I want to know, like, as a product leader or a manager, like how often do we revisit those Fs as and when the product is maturing, like as and when we are adding features or like it's in the maintenance stage or whatever, like what kind of stage the product is in, how often do we like revisit and recalibrate?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I would say, first of all, if your product is mission critical, you need to have a mechanism to report them automatically near real time. But however, if you're a business owner or a product owner looking at those metrics, I highly encourage team to look at them WBR, weekly business reviews, or at least MBR. It should not be more than 1 month, because if you're a business leader and you don't know about the friction points of your product in within 3 to 4 weeks, then you're already lagging in the industry, right? So that's why I highly encourage to start off your P0 version, or a, plain vanilla version of your 3F WBR metrics weekly, and see, sometimes everything looks good, then you can make it to bi-weekly WBR. I know it's not the right convention, but bi-weekly WBR and MBR. And in the QBR, I would flash this as a slide up there in terms of what progress we made week over week. That gives you a trend across all 3 blocks.
Correct. Thank you so much.
I believe someone else was speaking when Gurpreet was coming on camera.
Pooja. It was Pooja, I guess.
Hi, Anil. Thank you for the session. It was very insightful. Thank you so much. Quick question on the DevOps aspect that you touched. Can you share some insights